I'm Bae.
And I'm Morgan, and we are the Body Acceptance Babes.
This is the podcast where we talk about how to accept the body you have, let go of societal expectations to change the way you look, and to just be who you were born to be from the inside out.
You'll hear about how we embrace body neutrality, reject diet culture, and learn how you can too. Now on with the show. Hey, Bae, how are you?
Hey, Morgan, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you excited for episode 4?
So excited.
All right. Well, do you have a story this week? Or because I definitely have a story this week.
I feel like your story, I share in your story, so I think we should just really get into that one.
So this week is very appropriate that we're talking about diet culture, and we're going to get right into that. But my little mini story, which has a lot to do with it, is my daughter started junior kindergarten last week. And there was a general note sent home at her school that says, please pack nutritious lunches. And I have a friend who has a kid in a different school, but in the same school board. And they had a similar note home. And it said, like, please don't pack anything sugary. And their child was, so the mom also has another kid in the school who's older. She's packed lunches at the school board for years, you know, kind of. So she packed a variety of different things, including one homemade chocolate chip cookie and one homemade chocolate chip zucchini muffin. And her teacher, her kindergarten teacher, told her that her daughter said to her daughter, "You're not allowed to eat that cookie and that zucchini muffin." And so this friend confided in me because we both have kids at the same school board. And I was like livid. Like I was like fuming for her. I was so wound up and so upset because this is exactly what we're about to talk about. This is exactly the diet culture mentality that's ingrained in our society. I think that sending a variety of different things is great for lunches, but you shouldn't be putting 4-year-olds on a diet. And if they want to have one cookie and one zucchini muffin, then they should be allowed to do that. And that, yeah, in my humble opinion, teachers aren't nutritionists or doctors, and they have no right to tell you what you can and can't eat. It's one thing, I will preface this, it's one thing if it's an allergy issue. So say, for example, there's someone in the classroom that would be like allergic to zucchini. That would be a completely different thing because you're putting someone's life at risk and whatever. But like this wasn't that. This was those things are bad for you, so you can't eat them.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so the mother is going to, last I heard, the mother was going to have a conversation with the teacher, and that was the last thing I heard. So
I don't have children, and I was also fuming when we talked about this the other day.
Yes.
Like,
we talked about this off mic the other day because I was so upset about it. And so, you know, because I just found it completely outrageous. Like, I understand wanting to promote nutrition. I understand that. And but I don't think it's the place of the school or the school board of the teachers to police food and to say what children can and can't eat, and to reinforce diet culture mentalities of restriction and
especially,
you know,
as like at any age, but especially she's 4.
She's
like,
4, yeah.
Like all the kids, like, what? Like,
yeah.
Is this what we want to teach them? Like, it's the this is bad and this is good that we're going to talk about later with diet culture that is like so bad.
It's making food moral, basically.
Yeah, food is food. Like,
food is food.
We need food to live.
Yeah,
like,
so
straight up.
I have been in my daughter's lunches putting a variety of foods. I usually cover all the food groups, but I also throw in there something for her, like a chocolate chip mini muffin, or maybe one cookie as well, because I believe in giving a variety, and I don't believe my 4-year-old should be on a diet. And I have yet to hear anything from the school from that. If they ever did say something, beware of the wrath of me. Yeah. Because I will come down hard, because from everything I just said, like, I firmly disagree. But I was very, very upset for that mom friend, and I was very upset for her daughter. And her mom was just like, I had a real problem with the teacher telling her lunch was unhealthy. And I was like, yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So
Like on so many levels too. It's not like she's brought a box of chocolate chip cookies for lunch.
No.
Like, and even if she did, maybe that's all they had at home because they're having a hard time with money, and at least they're sending food with the kid. Like,
yeah, that's a huge point too, that it's classist. It's a classist notion that, only pack healthy things. Like, healthy things are more expensive. And with things like food shortages and stuff going on right now, things are even more expensive. Yeah. And it's not possible for people to pack only nutritious things. Like,
plus everybody you talk to, and you can, if you look at every single different diet, like Atkins, keto, like Weight Watch, if you look at all these different diets, every different diet has a different opinion on what is healthy. Like, exactly. One diet will tell you that fruit is great, and another one will tell you that fruit is bad. And if you look at like nutrients and what the body needs, like, your body needs a variety. So like, you can't have a teacher telling you what is healthy and what isn't, because the parent could have a completely opposite opinion, first of all. Second of all,
yeah, I don't believe that they are an authority on the matter. They're not a doctor or a nutritionist. They're not a dietitian. They're not, a specialist in child nutrition. They're a specialist in teaching children, but they're not a specialist in, and even so, like, to some extent, I don't know, I could go on and on for hours, and I feel like I will, but basically, I don't want my daughter thinking that she needs to go on a diet at the age of 4, and that's where my biggest issue with it lies. So
yeah, because I remember being like 6 years old and having kids tease me that I was fat. So like, it's crazy. Happens, yeah. And it's crazy to me. And that comes from your peers. And you know that kids are harsh and like kids are cruel and kids will just say whatever they see. But to have it come from a teacher, to have it come from an adult who should know better, it really feels, to an extent, it feels almost like bullying.
Well, yeah, and what if that kid, I mean, I don't think the teacher meant it like this. I mean, what do I know? I wasn't in that classroom, but like, the student could totally take it like, you're too fat to eat that cookie. You're too fat to eat that zucchini. So you shouldn't be eating that zucchini muffin. It's not healthy for you, or whatever maybe way the teacher meant. Like, I'm sure there was, I don't want to say I'm sure because I don't actually know, but I would like to think and hope that the teacher thought they were coming from a good place because they didn't know better. Yeah. But then it's up to the parents to step in and create boundaries around that, in my opinion. Yeah. Because that's when we'll be going home, Mama Bear, on whoever wants to call my child fat. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, so that's kind of like, and it's like segueing kind of into our topic of diet culture. It's very, like, it's so ingrained in our society, diet culture, that it's almost like, I don't want to say not the teacher's fault, but the teacher doesn't know better, right? Like, she doesn't, because it's been ingrained in her. Yes. We kind of, like, we meaning you and I, have seen the light. We know the harmfulness of it. We know why it's not for us, why we don't want it to be for our families, why we feel like, why we're doing this podcast. We know that, but like, not everyone knows that, right? So it's up to us to advocate for what we believe in for our families and for ourselves, and to educate people. And that's what the whole podcast is about.
That's what we're doing here.
That's what we're doing. So so do we want to maybe define diet culture for everyone? Because I feel like it's such a, like, I don't know, a word or two words, a compound word that gets used and thrown around so much that we should probably talk about what it means. Yeah.
So we have a definition here that we found online. But after that, I think we're going to go into further what it means to each of us and how we're going to be talking about it on this podcast. Exactly. So the definition, do you want to read it?
Sure. Okay. So I just got this from, I literally typed in diet culture definition into Google, and this is the first thing that came up. It's from a website called verywellfit.com. To be honest with you, I have not vetted the website. I don't know what they're about, but we just really like the wording, and this is how we believe it is perceived. So diet culture is the pervasive belief that appearance and body shape are more important than physical, psychological, and general well-being. It is the idea that controlling your body, particularly your diet, by limiting what and how much you eat is normal.
Yeah.
And I think that last sentence is very important because that's what is seen as normal in our society. And we're kind of rogue right now, our podcast, by trying to, we're going against the society's grain.
It's
right.
True.
But that's that. I think it's changing though, hopefully. But yeah, that's the definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
what
changing? I was going to say it's changing
yes.
depending on like the type of media you follow.
Yes.
Like if you don't watch the news and then you follow people on social media who talk about like intuitive eating, for example, or like, you know, no food. I follow this girl on Instagram, No Food Rules, and she's so funny. But when you start following stuff like that, the algorithms show you more. And then when you see more like that, it helps break this societal mold that we're used to living in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
So how do you relate to the definition, Bae? Like, what do you see if within yourself? Like, how does it relate to you?
Yeah, I feel like this definition pretty much hits the nail on the head. I feel like for me, diet culture it's become a way of life where it's expected that everyone's on a diet and it's expected that everyone's trying to like change how they look, and it's just become like normal to want to change how you look and to want to restrict what you're eating. And I don't know, I know that's all in the definition. I just
No, I think that's a really good point. Like even it's normal for like diet culture is so ingrained in us. Like it's seen as normal for people in a bigger body to want to be in a smaller body, and if you don't want that, then you're considered weird. And it's seen as people who are already thin like wanting to stay thin, right? So wanting to maintain that. So that's an aspect of diet culture too.
And if you're in a bigger body and you don't want to go into a smaller body, that you're considered unhealthy.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is awful too, because as we touched on in our very first episode, we are healthier now than we were when we were like struggling to stay thin and, you know, eating disorder behaviors, et cetera, because there's nothing healthy about an eating disorder.
No.
Yeah.
No, and the first part of the definition hits home for me because when I was in the middle of my eating disorder, that is the exact thing that I believed. I believed that being small was more important than my physical well-being, my psychological well-being, and my general well-being. I thought that being thin was what I needed in order to feel loved and in order to feel accepted in society. So I was willing to sacrifice my well-being for that, including my physical well-being. Like, obviously I knew that taking laxatives every day was bad for me. Obviously I knew that making myself throw up every day was bad for me, but I was willing to look past that in order to, because it worked. Doing those things actually made me thinner. So I was willing to do them and put my health and well-being aside in order to achieve that. And while that is a very extreme example, I think it is the ultimate goal of diet culture, really, in general. Even for people who are just on a keto diet or on a whatever, you're putting your psychological and physical well-being aside in order to be thin. You're starving yourself. You're feeling hungry and ignoring those feelings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your body is craving carbs because you're not eating them, and you're ignoring that.
Yeah, because someone else is telling you that it's bad.
Yes, because someone else is telling you that eating carbs will make you fat. So
the other thing that I feel like could be added to this is like diet culture is putting all your trust in something external that is what's healthy for you when every body is different.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. It's like you have to follow whatever diet you're on is like a regimen that you have to follow. that is the opposite of listening to your body, right?
Yeah.
So you're listening to, and it's really counterintuitive. Like I remember before I was in the middle of eating disorder stuff on diets being like, is this really the way? Like I'm miserable. Like, is this really what I have to do? Like, do I really have to? And it's almost like the no pain, no gain mentality, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's the thing. You get praised. It's like, you get praised. You only had a bite of your chocolate cake. Look at you. Good job.
Good job. Yeah, exactly. You said no to dessert today. Good job. You said, you were going to eat chips, but then changed your mind and didn't. Good for you. Like, and it's like, it becomes, and then when that happens, you get a dopamine hit, and then that makes you want to continue it. But really, at the end of the day, it's not what I believe is healthy for the majority of people, if not anyone, right? Like, it's not, restriction is not, it goes against what our bodies are meant to do. So like food, diet culture, for like nutrition and health for me is something that your body knows it from birth, and diet culture is breaking you of your natural instincts because everybody else knows better than you. And it also, like, I don't know. I agree with that. And the example I have that is my toddler is like my daughter who's 4 when she was a toddler, and she'll regulate herself. I can put a giant thing of food in front of her and she will eat as much as she wants, and she will stop when she's full. Like I will literally sometimes I purposely put more than I know she'll eat. And I just watch her graze and eat what she wants. And then she'll be like, okay, mommy, I'm done. And okay. Like, but I don't have to worry about her overeating, air quotes, because she is at the age where she hasn't been conditioned by society yet to not listen to her body. She listens to her body. So
I think that's a good way to put it. Diet culture is conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's literally conditioning to not listen to your body and to go with someone else. And it's like, it's so, like, I keep becoming speechless because it's so crazy. Like, it's like diet culture, literally, that's what it is for me. Diet culture is crazy. It's crazy to think that you can absolutely restrict something and lose weight. You absolutely can. But life is so much more than what you look like. Yeah. And society has made it feel like that's all you should care about is what you look like.
And what health outcome are you going to actually have from doing that? If you lose weight, diets have, and this is a very important statistic, and this statistic comes from Intuitive Eating, the book called Intuitive Eating, which we quoted in one of our earlier episodes. But I believe reading that the statistic is like diets have a 95% failure rate. So when you enter into a diet, you're literally putting your health on the line, and you're literally risking gaining all the weight back and more because you are engaging in diet culture behavior. So that's it, that's where that comes in. It's really, we'll talk about this later on, how the medical community views it as well, but like it's really kind of a twisted topsy-turvy thing. But it definitely for me, it's when I realized there had to be something more than my eating disorder out there, and when I found intuitive eating and I found body acceptance, I remember thinking like, okay, like there has to be something more than the way I've been living, because it's not worth it. Like, it's not, I can't keep sacrificing this. It's not sustainable. That's another thing too. Diets aren't sustainable. You can starve yourself for a couple months or a year even, but eventually you're going to get sick of doing it.
Yeah.
And you can, and your body's going to win. Because it's going to want to eat.
That's the thing. Like I called it a lifestyle change. You can call it whatever you want. It's still a diet. Yeah. And it's still a diet. Mm-hmm. I called it a lifestyle change, and it was a lifestyle change in a sense, whereas like I was a student in university, and then so you're sitting around a lot, you're drinking a lot with your friends, whatever, and then after when I was in the height of my diet culture days, I was eating, I would not mix more than 2 food groups in one meal because I believed that it passed through your body quicker if you only ate 2 food groups, like vegetables and a carb, or vegetables and protein, or like if you only mixed one thing, it's like called food combining, I think. And if you do it like that, it passes through the body quicker, and then you have less blah 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 blah. So like
speeds of your metabolism.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Supposedly, and I'm you can't see, but I'm quoting air quoting because it probably doesn't do anything.
And like that was one of the things I've tried. Of course, like we've tried everything.
We've tried everything,
and that's the thing. People try everything because they think, oh well, this one didn't work for me, so maybe this will work for me. And like, I don't know. I just feel like, and stuff like oh my God, I'm getting totally off track here. But when in the height of my days, like, I lost so much weight, but like you're really, I totally lost my point because diet culture just makes me so crazy. Like, I just can't.
Clearly, we're both very passionate about this topic. So, but okay, let's move on to our next point, which I'm really excited to talk about. But like, what do we do when diet culture comes up in conversations with friends and family? So we've established that Bae and I absolutely do not subscribe to diet culture. We are into body acceptance. We're into intuitive eating, listening to our bodies. We believe that obviously very passionately. So what do we do if you see, you're gonna talk to your friend? So say we're gonna name our friend Judy. So say we were like, hey Judy, what's going on? And Judy's decided that she's started keto.
Yeah.
So how do we handle that? And she's really excited about it because it's a new thing. Yeah. Right. So what do we say? And she's going on and on about it. And, oh, it's so great. And I've already lost 5 pounds and I just started a week ago and, yada, yada, yada. Like, how do we handle that situation?
For me, usually I would just go like, oh, and I would not engage. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't sound happy or sad regardless. I'd be like, oh, and I would probably be trying to think of another topic to change the subject. And I feel like that's not necessarily, depends on the friend. It's not necessarily the right way to handle it because Judy might think that I don't care. But also, what she thinks is none of my business. So I just have to control, I just have to protect my own mental well-being. And most of the time actually, you know what, I remember having a conversation with a similar Judy maybe like 6 months ago, and I think she did say something like, oh, I need to go on a diet, blah 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 blah. And then I think usually I bring up like, oh, I read this book, Intuitive Eating, have you heard of it? Like, usually trying to like direct them that way. And then if they're not interested, if they think it's a diet, I would try and change the subject.
Yeah, I've had this situation come up a lot with the Judys in my life. And I have talked to my therapist about it because I'm in therapy for eating disorder related recovery stuff. And one of the things that my therapist reminds me is that everyone is on a different journey. And that I'm on a different journey than them, they're on a different journey than me, and that we have to respect that. But at the same time, we don't have to we don't have to lie and show that we're proud of them when we're not, or that we like what they're doing when we don't. And the phrase she taught me, I think I brought this up in our first episode, but the phrase she taught me was, I'm happy that you're happy. Yeah. And because you're not saying anything about the diet, you're not saying anything about whether it's good or bad, whether you like it or you don't. You're just commenting on what you think is their happiness in that moment. Yeah. And the reason I really like that phrase is because maybe they'll think twice about whether they actually are happy doing that or not, and whether it makes them happy. Because I think that that's something that would be like, oh, am I actually happy doing this? Like, you know what I mean? That would make me think twice, potentially. And it's just a neutral response to that. And then absolutely after saying that, I would probably change the subject as well. I would probably move on to something else. And then if they kept bringing it up, over and over again, or kept trying to bring the topic back to that, I would be honest and just say, I don't subscribe to diet culture. Let's talk about something else.
I was just going to say that too. Yeah. I don't subscribe to diet culture.
Yeah. I believe in intuitive eating. I believe in intuitive eating. I'm in, for me personally, I always say I'm in recovery for an eating disorder, and I'm just honest. And then I say, I believe in body acceptance and just that we're all meant to be in different sized bodies. And then I'll just say, can we please talk about something else? And then usually sometimes they'll ask me what those things are, what's intuitive eating? And then I'll explain it, of course, in a respectful way.
Because they'll think it's a diet.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
It's funny when I first came upon intuitive eating, it's also something that people in eating disorder recovery use as well. I thought it was a diet. I was literally, I remember reading the book, waiting to getting to the diet part, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it might have been also the way the publishers did, because the tagline at the time, and it's different now. If you look up the book now, it is a different tagline, but it was Intuitive Eating, the Revolutionary Guide That Works. That was the name. And I was like, so when you use that language works, your mind, which has been infused with diet culture, works at losing weight, right?
Yeah.
So so that's part of it. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with just changing the subject, but I also think there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries verbally and saying.
That's what I was just going to say. I feel like it's really important to let your friends and family know that you're not down for diet culture talk, and that they can talk to somebody else about it, not you. Because, for whatever reason, whether you're in therapy or, right? It doesn't matter. It
doesn't even matter if you're in therapy or not, if you just don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not in therapy for it, and I don't know. I've always felt like my eating disorder was not as severe as your eating disorder, but it's not a competition here.
No,
but
it's not a competition.
But it always felt to me oh, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I feel regardless of what your reasoning is, if you don't want to talk about it, it's just so common in society for it to come up. But I think it's really important when people do bring it up, if it's a one-on-one thing, just oh, well, I don't have anything to say about that because I don't believe in diet culture,
And you don't have to be mean about it. You just have to be, and you don't have to have an eating disorder to not want to talk about diet culture. You might just be fed up with dieting. You might just really be on a journey of body acceptance. There could be a million reasons why you don't want to talk about it, and that's fine.
And you don't need to justify your reason. You
exactly.
are completely entitled to every journey that you're on.
You made a really good point. I remember when I first started therapy, I actually, I'm going to use this terminology even though I don't know how PC it is, but I came out to my friends and family about having an eating disorder, and that I'm in recovery for it, and I came out to my friends and family and basically said, I can't touch dieting with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to ever talk about it. So basically I'm not going to be engaging in those conversations. And it wasn't even directed at any one person. It was just just so you know, this is what my life is like right now. This is what I believe. If you're going to look for validation on something that I don't believe in, then find someone else to give you the validation, because I won't be giving it to you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that there's nothing wrong with also prefacing that too. It takes a lot of courage to do that, because they're immediately going to attack you on maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be very accepting and loving. Yeah. But they could attack you on things well, what do you mean you're not going to continue to try to be thin? That's unhealthy. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
people... it's I turned off my notifications for Snapchat because I have a friend who keeps posting about her meals as her way of, I don't know what her intention is, but it always just felt so icky to me. Yeah. Because it's I don't want to see what you're eating. I don't care what you're eating. Eat whatever you want to eat. But it was almost a look at me, be proud of me. I'm just eating a
salad instead of...
Yeah. I'm eating carrot sticks for a snack. It's cool. Do you want carrot sticks? Do you want dip with that? Do you not want dip with that? Are you not eating dip because you think dip is too fatty? Or are you on keto and you have all kinds of dip because you think fat is great?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's true though. No, and it can be, I can understand, like, I mean, I've posted photos of my meals and stuff, especially if I go on vacation and I go to awesome restaurants. But obviously that's not coming from a diet culture place. It's coming from a, look how delicious this looks. Yeah. I'm so excited to be at this restaurant and eat this food place. But that's a little different than, and it's not every day, right? Yeah. So also if I make a really good meal, and it could be anything. Like I made potato and leek soup the other day, and it came out really well, and I loved it, and it was so good. And I forgot to take a picture of it, but I was gonna post it just because I was so like proud of myself for making it and for having it taste so good. So yeah, so there's definitely some, you know what I mean, some things actually, and this kind of segues into our next point about pop culture references, because it's kind of like social media, right? Like,
yeah, I feel like social media is where you see it now, because there's a difference between posting a recipe, like, hey, I made this soup, if you want the recipe, let me know. Yep. Versus, hey, look, these carrot sticks I'm eating. Or maybe not carrot sticks. There's too much sugar in carrots. Maybe you're eating pepper and celery.
Yeah, you're eating just celery. Nothing else. Yeah.
Because celery is like negative calories.
And and you're eating, what is it? Like nut butter. That's not peanut butter, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I love peanut butter. But like, stuff like that, right? Like, and cool if you like nut butter, by the way. Some people like the natural peanut butter better than the store-bought peanut butter, and that's cool.
Absolutely. I love almond butter over peanut butter.
Yeah, there you go.
I just love the flavor.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Yeah. I just want to say that when you release yourself from this diet culture, it opens you up to A, making fun of it, kind of like we are, and B, seeing it for what it is, which is just another industry trying to turn a buck, because it is worth billions of dollars. And if you could believe that you could be happy and healthy just the way you are, they can't make money off of you. And
exactly.
And
that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, like, when you unsubscribe in life from diet culture, it removes all this stuff from your brain. Like, how nice is it to look at a meal and be like, this looks delicious, versus this is this many calories, this is also what I ate today, and this is what I can't eat later, and this is what I have to eat tomorrow, and this is much I have to work out tomorrow. Like, oh my God, that's exhausting. Like, it's so exhausting. Like, my brain is open now to what makes me happy, what am I craving, what does my body need, versus what am I allowed to eat, how much am I allowed to eat, how much do I have to work out, what is everybody else doing, what is the new fad, what's going to work best. Oh my gosh, my clothes are too tight because whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say unsubscribe, because I guess when I'm on social media, on Instagram and Facebook is where I see a lot of diet culture advertisements. And actually sometimes after recording these episodes, because my phone hears us talking about it, and I'm sure the word diet triggers some sort of thing in their algorithm. But I notice it. It's the day after Thanksgiving, the day after Christmas, those bigger food holidays where I see like 20 advertisements, maybe more, of dieting, going on diets, doing this fitness thing, doing this whatever. And it's like hide. And so there's nothing wrong with hiding those. And I sometimes even report them if they're really, really diet culture-y. I report them.
Yeah, I report them as offensive.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think that, you know, there's any. So my point of saying that is sometimes you do have to unsubscribe, like literally and metaphorically, kind of like we were talking about, but also literally click the unsubscribe button or the hide button or the whatever of things that aren't, you know, things remove
the
them from your life.
The people,
maybe
the celebrities.
Delete accounts. Delete accounts that you find triggering. Absolutely. Like, you want it to curate your newsfeed so that it represents, I guess, feelings of joy and happiness and love and body acceptance. You don't want to see, if you constantly have advertisements for diets, you're not going to want to embrace your own body, because you're going to be, again, it's conditioning to not, right? So
exactly. That's something that really helped me was changing the pages I followed, like removing them or just muting them if I just wanted to take a break. And
I also I mute people who are on weight loss journeys. There's air quotes with that.
Same.
Because every once in a while they'll post they'll post their progress, and that can be triggering. But and you know what? If that's their journey, that's their journey. And they're allowed to post whatever they want, but I don't need to see it in my feed if I don't want to. So I can hide it. I can
how far
snooze
you
them.
ran.
Yeah, I don't care how far you ran. I don't care that a year ago you were 60 pounds heavier. You're still, in my opinion, a beautiful person no matter what you weigh. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, like I have this one friend or Facebook friend who is posted her journey, I think yesterday, and it was like, look at how I used to look and look how I'm like also last year you had a baby, so like, you know what I mean, like it's kind of a little bit different, but it's one of those things where I just hid her post because I didn't want to see it, and by me doing that, it tells Facebook that I don't want to keep seeing posts like that, so it will eventually and a lot of it is to sell you things. Like I have another Facebook friend who is part of Herbalife, which is an MLM, multi-level marketing scheme. And I say scheme, but it's a multi-level marketing company. And she'll be like, look how great I look. Join the next challenge. Yeah. And it's getting her to join people on Herbalife.
But like, let's talk about that word, for example, because diet culture is a challenge. And it is not a good challenge. No. If the failure rate is 95%, do you really want to take that challenge? No thanks.
Yeah, is that really worth your time and energy?
Yeah.
Is that really worth and they use buzzword like journey, weight loss journey, challenge. I've been on this journey. And it's kind of like they're taking words that aren't diet culture and trying to turn them into diet culture words. Yeah. Like I'm on a journey too. It's a journey of self-acceptance.
Exactly.
Right? So like
But that's what the diet culture industry has had to shift their marketing to include words like healthy and journey and wellness because they're trying to disguise it because people are more woke to what's going on, and they need to still make their billions of dollars every year because they're not going to make, I'm just going to say Weight Watchers, they're not going to make money if people decide that they love themselves and they don't want to change the way they look.
And so it's like, oh well, maybe you love the way you look but you're not healthy, so we're going to focus on health. It's it's a company telling you you're not healthy, not a doctor or a so like at the end of the day, like that's like at the end of the day we see so much of that, right? Like we see so much and I'm noticing next on our list is like commercials and TV and films. We were talking about how yes, there's still not an equal representation of bigger bodies, but that they're starting to be.
I watched.
Didn't you have an example of you had an example, right?
Yeah, so much more. So, like, actually, the other day, I watched Thor, Love and Thunder, the 4th installment of Thor, and Melissa McCarthy was in it, and I was like, yes. And, like, she is someone that I love who, like, represents, like, just being who you are and, like, how you look, and, like, it's cool, and, like, and there also, I watch these Hallmark movies where usually it's a thin man and a thin woman falling in love, and that literally is the framework, but they're opening up. I saw one with the lead was in a bigger body, and the entire movie was about body acceptance, and like it's definitely
it's starting to change.
Absolutely.
Melissa McCarthy is actually on a design show on HGTV. She and her cousin run this design show, and I actually like that she's represented as a bigger body on a design show, because if you look at all the designers on HGTV, they're all standard size people, and it was really nice to be like, oh good, we have some representation on HGTV too. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's really like, look at the Property Brothers, look at like what's the other one, there's 1,000 of them, like Erin in Hometown. Look at Windy
Jen
City,
on No Demo
Rehab.
Reno.
Yeah, exactly. Jen on No Demo Reno. Like they're all like, it's like in order to be on HGTV, not only do you have to be good at design, but you have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
So it was really nice that obviously she got hired on the design show because of her status as a celebrity, but still, at least she's bringing some representation, right? So
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And so like, I just like in that situation, the scene, like the scene that she was in a small scene in the movie, but she was representing someone who was in the third movie, and that person from the third movie was not in a bigger body. And I really like that it was okay that someone in a bigger body was representing someone who was in a bigger body. And I'm saying it kind of vague like this to like not take away from the fun of the movie. But like I loved that so much.
Well, it's almost like that character in a bigger body was allowed to be just a character and not like the comic relief or the being made fun of for being bigger or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Like the butt of the jokes, the whatever. They were allowed, because Melissa McCarthy's been in other movies, but as herself in a bigger body, but she's sometimes been the comic relief where you're kind of making fun of her size too, right?
Oh, you know what else? I watched Senior Year, which is Rebel Wilson on Netflix, and she's lost a lot of weight throughout COVID, but I still feel like she's not like stick thin, like what society would want you to strive for. I think she looks like, not to use the diet culture buzzword healthy, but like, I think she looks like normal,
like average size.
Yeah. And I really like
what diet culture thing, makes you think is average size. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was really nice that this one guy was like, oh yeah, like still like, I know now that I'm about to say it doesn't come across very well, but he was like still like admiring her body. And like, I like that Rebel Wilson is able to now like, and I feel like she's not being admired necessarily because she lost weight. And especially in this movie, it doesn't talk about weight loss at all. It's just like, I like that she's not the butt of the joke. And like, I don't know.
You like that even though she's still in a bigger body for society standards, she was liked by a guy and like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's funny, like, and I would love to see more of these representations.
Yeah.
Because I still don't think there's enough. And I still think the film and television industry can come a lot farther than they have by hiring different body types and different sizes, and even with things like extras and things like, or I guess technically they're called background actors now, background work and whatnot. Like it's still, I have friends that are involved in that, and it's still, you have to be a certain size and fit into a certain size clothing to do it, and it's, you know what I mean? It's like we don't need to be like, when you walk around in the town that you live in, you see bodies of all shapes and sizes. You don't just see thin people.
Exactly. That's so what I was going to say.
Yeah, why aren't we representing everyone?
Yeah. Well, not only that, the average person, I think, is a size like 14.
Yes.
And like most clothing stores only go up to a size 14. So like, it's so messed up.
Yeah, it's like, really messed up. Yeah.
It's so messed up to think that the average person can maybe shop at a normal store. Like,
maybe. Yeah.
It's crazy.
If it fits a certain way, but
yeah.
So no, I totally get it. But do you have we already kind of touched on social media, but do you have any, and you already mentioned one of them, but do you have any other people you love following on social media that maybe we can tell the listeners about? Like positive people, body acceptance people?
I follow Ashley Graham. I think she's really good at like body, and Lizzo, both really good at body acceptance. And then in terms of like shifting away from diet culture in terms of food, the no food rules, or anyone who talks about intuitive eating, I feel like they're better people to listen to than like diety people. But not all of them though, because like some people do use intuitive eating as a weight loss thing, and that's the other thing about this diet culture definition is like the intent is to result in weight loss. And our intent for this podcast is to say that like you can be healthy exactly how you look right now, and like you can love yourself exactly how you look right now, and like you don't need diet culture to change who you are and restrict what you're eating in order to love yourself. So I don't know if I actually have I can't think of any handles of people, but if I do think of some after, I can totally put them in the show notes. Or like if you go to my Instagram, listener, you can probably see who I'm following, so that would help too.
There is one, I can't remember her last name, but her first name's Allie, Allie. She's got a lot of followers. If you just type that in, you'd probably find it. She is a huge advocate for body positivity, body acceptance, loving the body you're in. She has her own journey of eating disorder stuff. And yeah, she used to be a size like 2 or 4, and now she's a size 20, and she talks about that a lot. She does Amazon hauls and does a lot of try-ons of clothes from different popular retail stores. And it actually is kind of great because it gives, if you're wondering how the clothes fit relative to certain sizes, it helps you be like, oh, okay, this store, the 20 is a true size 20, or this one, it's smaller. So if I were to buy it and I'm this size, I could buy X size and it would fit me. You know what I mean? So it's really great. But she talks about, she also has a daughter, and she's trying to have her daughter not subscribe to diet culture as well. So she's great. And I also follow the authors of intuitive eating as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, they're on Instagram if anyone, if you want to, Evelyn Tribole is one, and I can't remember the other one's name. We'll link it in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. I feel like on TikTok, it's easier to find people to follow if you give it like a couple weeks with your algorithm, if you're new to the platform or if you don't use it or whatever. You just make sure you're liking things that are in alignment with what you want to see, and scroll past the stuff that you're not, and do that really for like point. Do that for like 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks, and your feed will be full of body positivity and like it's like a new shift of accounts to follow, because I kind of went extreme when I first started my journey, because my journey was like, if I saw thin people, my brain translated that to, I could look like that, I have looked like that, let me try and look like that again. So I kind of like removed all of them and just had like plus size people to follow, so that it became, the thing is too, is like it becomes normal to see those things, because it was abnormal for me to see plus size bodies on social media. But then when you subscribe to a bunch more pages, then you're seeing a lot more of that, and then it becomes normal, and then it becomes normal to see all these different bodies, which is like a good way to like decondition. And I've done that too. I've more, maybe not to that extreme, but I will seek out influencers that are that want to send a body positive message or a body acceptance message, or even body neutrality message. So and those creators are what I like to like support, and even too. If they're actually, their content is about something else completely different, if they still have a diet mentality, I usually unfollow them. Same. Like even if they're not a diet, even if they're not a like say they're talking about something else, but then they say 1 or 2 things every couple of weeks that are diet culture, I'm like, no, I can't, no. So, and then I guess I really wanted to talk about diet culture
in the medical community and how
yes.
and this. So we're gonna make this a episode in itself because it's
yes.
such a huge topic. But I think we should just touch on it briefly and as an intro into that episode, and then we can elaborate on it more. But I know I have had experiences with it. I believe you have as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a good it's a good kind of intro to talk about why why do we think the medical community subscribes to diet culture? Like there's a couple reasons why. I have a couple in my head, but like
I think there's a lot of biased studies out there that didn't take a full scope to prove whatever, because like it's science. They have a hypothesis. They're literally trying to prove their hypothesis.
Yeah.
And it depends on the scientist. Are you trying to prove yourself right? Or are you trying to get the facts? And a lot of these studies, I think this was in intuitive eating, or maybe it was in Health at Every Size. A lot of these studies are sponsored by companies who have an agenda.
Companies.
Yeah. And
or weight loss companies. Yeah.
Yeah. And if there's an agenda, you're not going to get an unbiased result. And that's the problem with the medical community, is that they'll cite sources and the sources will be researched, but they may not be fully scope researched because of these other factors that we don't even know about. And also, I think in one of the books, it also talked about the medical community not actually getting a lot of education in nutrition. There's so much that a doctor has to study that they can't study everything there is about nutrition in terms of like micronutrients and macronutrients and like what the body needs and how to diagnose different bodies based on, you could be deficient in a certain mineral, anyway.
Yeah. I think those are two or three amazing points. And then just to add on to that, there's a couple of things. So I think that in terms of research and what's been put out there, it's been a lot about white, basically the textbooks that the doctors read are written by white people. They're taking a very European approach, and so it doesn't take into consideration different body types from different cultures. Yeah. And I think that's a huge point. So your culture, and your body type based on your ethnicity might not have been studied, and I think that's a really important thing to mention. Also, in a lot of situations, I think the medical community wrongly will draw conclusions like being what they consider in a smaller body equals less health conditions, so it's easier to tell someone lose weight to cure this condition instead of trying to find the root cause of it that might have nothing to do with that. So it's easier for a doctor to say, so if I come say with an issue like, oh, I have a knee, there's a knee pain, there's something going on in my knee. Oh, well, you weigh X amount, you should be losing weight and then your knee will stop hurting. Yeah. Okay, but why is my knee actually hurting? Is there did I break it? Did I like lose cartilage? Did I, is it bruised? Is it like you're not answering the question.
You could have osteoporosis.
Do I have osteoporosis?
You could be diagnosed as
arthritis,
just fat, which is not something that is being fat is not the same as having cancer. It's not going to kill you.
No, and in fact, a lot of people, this was in Health at Every Size. I remember the Health at Every Size study was they took two groups of people. One of them were on diets with food restrictions to try to be a certain size, to try to be smaller, and one group wasn't. And at the end of the study, the group that tried to go on diets I think most of them ended up failing, if not all of them.
Yep.
And a lot of them ended up gaining more weight than they were before they started the study. And their health outcomes, meaning their cholesterol, their blood work, like that, was worse. than their counterparts who were just told to live their lives normally and and not try to restrict things.
There's a lot of good information in those books, listeners. If you haven't read them, and if you're new to this, it would really help you to learn about the medical community through these books. They shed some light on things that we don't think about, because I don't know if everyone feels the same way, but I always feel like a doctor is an authority on all things health, and it's just not possible for one person to know everything about everybody, and not everyone fits into the same box. And
absolutely. And that's a reason too why doctors refer you to other doctors, because they know their limitations about something. So I feel like there needs to be more referrals maybe about health and wellness to nutritionists and whatnot, right? Like, why are doctors trying to diagnose you as being fat when that might not be, you know what I mean? Like, it might not be something that's necessarily, like, you're drawing that conclusion without
and they're not working together. Like, I was seeing a naturopath and an MD, and my naturopath was like, you should get this blood work done so that we can find out if you need blah blah blah. And I went to my doctor, and my doctor was like, no, I'm not prescribing that because your naturopath asked for it. And it's like, why can't you work together so that we can try and figure out what's wrong with me, you know?
Why does it have to be and a good point too is these, I believe I can't remember if it's Health at Every Size or Intuitive Eating, talks about the BMI and how that was invented by, basically, so like, to put it in perspective, it was invented by a white male, and it was made to be, a tool to, it was actually made, my understanding was it was made to be a tool to help during like World War I and World War II, like what, like, you know what I mean? I don't know if it was made to help like standard sizing or whatnot, but for uniforms and stuff. But anyway, it wasn't meant to be a tool to define all health the way it is seen as now. And it also, because it was made by a white male, it doesn't take in consideration women, people of color, people of different ethnicities. It doesn't take into consideration any of that, those changes. So, and those aspects. So like, I don't ascribe to it. Like, when I go to the doctor, I choose not to allow them to weigh me because in my opinion, it doesn't matter. And if they don't know my weight, they can't tell me I'm too fat. They can't tell me anything else. And also they can't tell me my BMI because I don't believe in that. Yeah. So, and if I have health concerns, I want to be treated like someone who, you know what I mean? I want to be, like, I don't want to be, exactly. I want to be treated like someone who would be, I guess, a standard size or whatnot. I don't want to be treated, I don't want that to be a blind spot, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think what's important to, like, because I feel like we could go on and on and on, which is why this will be its own topic. But
I feel like we can end it at that. Yeah. Well, after you say this one thing. Yeah.
I just want to say that if you're seeing a doctor and they keep telling you that the reason we'll go back to the knee example, is because you're fat, look for another doctor. Because like, I stayed with my doctor for years when she was so narrow-minded and she didn't align with my beliefs. And I found another doctor who did align and things moved forward. So I think doctors are just like the teacher from the very beginning about the unhealthy snacks. They come in to their education with their own bias, and they come into their work with their own bias. So I feel like they're humans just like everybody else, and they have diet culture pushed on them from any age. So they can bring those beliefs in, and they can cloud their judgment just like any of the rest of us. So it's really important that if you have potentially a doctor who is super diet culture-y, to look for another one if you don't subscribe to that.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. It can be really scary because, like you said before, you see them as a position of authority, but you're the authority on yourself. Like, I'll give a good example. I had to get blood work done, and just for an annual physical, and my doctor had originally put it as fasting blood work, but fasting for me is a huge trigger for my eating disorder because I used to starve myself and fast for days. So I asked my doctor if there was a way that I could do the blood work without fasting, and she changed it all and changed it so that I could do it without fasting. And like, that's an example of a doctor being supportive of you.
Yes.
And but I had to advocate for, my doctor doesn't know that. She doesn't know that that's triggering for me, even though she does know I have a history of eating disorder. She's not going to know that that one thing is triggering. Yeah. And that I don't want to do it. So, and she was able to so don't be afraid to think outside the box and find other ways to do tests or other ways to do things if they're triggering for you as well. And that I loved that my doctor did that, because it was like we were working collaboratively together to get the health out, like to achieve the test, like to take the test to see what the health outcomes are, right? Yes. And my doctor is an example of a good doctor who will listen to me, and it is very, very, I've had her since I was younger, and you know, she was very, when I told her about my eating disorder, she was very accepting and very just wants to help, right? So so I think that's that we could probably end it on that note, that like, if you don't like your doctor, find another one, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself in medical situations, because you might be in a situation where you have to, or where it's just a better outcome if you do. Yeah. And just with everything else about diet culture, like we talked about social media, and it's really hard to get away from like diet culture commercials, but with TV and film, you can absolutely change what you watch, change the narrative in your own life, so that you can unsubscribe, unfollow, hide things. Because things. It'll really help shift your journey if you're on a body acceptance journey, to follow people who support and subscribe the same beliefs that you do, or the beliefs that you're striving to believe. Absolutely. That's my advice to summarize this whole episode. And I think we could leave it at that, because that is the best advice. Like, that we're ending it on the how can we help you, and those are definitely amazing suggestions. So we'll definitely do another episode on the medical community for sure. Absolutely. And we could do an episode on some of these, like, I know, right? Media, like, so a lot of these topics, but it's good to just touch on them so you get an idea of where we're coming from, and then from that point on. And diet culture is ingrained in every aspect of our society, because it's been around for so long. So unsubscribing and changing the media and everything, changing everything about your life to really accommodate your new beliefs, because they exist. They are out there. That's what this podcast is for. There's so many people out there who are like in your body, like similar body to you, that you can like look up to and learn from. And like, there's definitely, you don't have to subscribe or be stuck in a diet culture box to live a long and happy and healthy life. Absolutely. I definitely agree. In fact, you're going to be happier not doing it. Yes. So much happier. Or at least in our experiences. Yes. I don't know anyone who is on this journey unless they're like, I wish I could go back to starving myself. Yeah, I know. I wish I could starve myself. I wish I could exercise 5 hours a day. I wish I could, Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Comment on social media to let us know what you think. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Body Acceptance Babes. Please join our Patreon for bonus content, behind the scenes access, and more. If you or someone you love is struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating behavior, you can get help in Canada from the National Eating Disorder Information Centre toll-free at 1-866-633-4220, or email nedic@uhn.ca. Or in the U.S., you can text or call the National Eating Disorder Association toll-free at 1-800-931-2237.